So,
Hey,
Stephen, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us. How are you doing?
doing good this morning. How about your morning over here? How's your day
Yes,
going?
yeah, my day. Well, my day's been pretty good. It's been a bit of a random day. I played some crazy mini golf this afternoon with some friends, but sort of dashed back home so we could talk because I've been really looking forward to this conversation because obviously you've got this amazing documentary sort of in the making at the moment about sharksploitation, and obviously before we jumped on the call, we had a sort of a quick chat, and there's nearly sort of 200 movies that we could talk about. But I think what we need to do, we need to first of all start with the Godfather of the shark movie. We need to talk about Jaws. So tell me, when was the first time you saw Jaws, and what's your relationship with the film since you saw it?
Oh man, this is something people are going to hear 100 times from me. It's like I always say that Jaws is the movie that like cursed me. It's the movie that made me become obsessed with cinema and made me become a filmmaker and got me in this horrible industry I'm in to be struggling my whole life. But yeah, it's like I say it cursed me because it made me fall in love with movies. And yeah, because but I mean, it's like I love Star Wars and I love all that, but it was Jaws was like my number one first love because I saw it in the theaters, but I saw it on a re-release, theatrical re-release, because back in those days, a lot of people probably don't know or don't remember that a movie would come out theatrically and then maybe the next year they re-release it again, or 2 years later they re-release it again. This before it would hit HBO and all that. And so my dad was like a Navy man, so he was obsessed with Jaws. So luckily for him, when like he would literally drive home from work like at 5 p.m. and just like I want to go see Jaws and just pick me up when we drive to the theater. So I saw it multiple times in the during the re-release because my dad loved it so much and he just kept coming home and picking me up. It wasn't on HBO yet. We didn't have we didn't have like the VCR or Betamax yet. So that's the way I kept experiencing it. And sometimes one time we walked in the theater when the raft was floating on the beach when the Kintavoy died. And my dad just was like, oh, we missed to meet the boy. And then we went and we sat down. So it was like, I think it was thanks to my dad. He's the one that kept taking me to see it over and over again when I was a kid in the theaters.
And I've had a similar experience. I saw it when I was about five, and I saw it on the TV. And yeah, it was like you. I'd watched Star Wars, I'd seen Superman and the Wizard of Oz. Sort of very distinctive, kids movies. And then when I saw Jaws, as soon as it started, I'm like, this is a bit different. This is like my first proper grown-up movie. And it just transfixed me, and again, like if I wasn't in my line of work that I am, I probably would be in the film industry in some way because of Jaws. It's such an inspiring and powerful film. And since COVID, it's become super relevant again because everybody's looking at lockdown and the beach is closed, beach is open. Mayor Vaughan is pretty much every major politician in the world right now when it comes to the handling of COVID. So even though this movie's come out sort of 45, 46 years ago, it's still relevant today, and it's all being handed down sort of through the generations as well, which is it's just super exciting for us, particularly being the Daily Jaws, because we get that sort of outside looking in view of so many different fans having so many different experiences with the film, even sort of today. In terms of Jaws itself, do you have sort of a favorite moment or a favorite character that really sort of connects with you?
Oh man, moment wise, that's a tough one because there's so much. It's like it's almost like every when I see it on the big screen again, and now every time like a new version of it comes out from like DVD to Blu-ray, it's like I'm always picking up new. It's like how many times have I seen this movie, and I'm always picking up new things. You know, I guess I always liked Brody, the sheriff. I guess he's always been like my favorite character for some reason. I I God, I can't even, what moment to pick out. I think it's definitely the scene where the fisherman, when his leg is bitten off, when you see that shot of Bruce underwater where you barely see him, but you see him. It's like
Oh,
every new release of that movie, it's like I can't wait to get to that moment just to see it, because it's like since I was a kid, when I was a kid watching it, I saw it in the theaters a bunch, but then, I'd watch it on VHS because we taped off HBO. And it's almost like you just see that white of him and then when it came out on DVD, then I got a more clearer look of him. And now blue, it's like, and then when I go see it re-released, there's something about that scene over and over and over again. And the other crazy scene too is the oh, what's his name? Ben Gardner, when his face comes out of the hole, it's like at the bottom of the boat, it's like sometimes it gets me and sometimes it doesn't. It's like that scene in Alien when Tom Skerritt hits the freaking blowtorch and the alien is there. I don't know what it is. That and the Ben Gardner. Sometimes it gets me and sometimes it's still, even though I know it's coming, it's still like jarring. And I think what's really interesting is for people to do too is like, if you ever, next time it's like on TV or you're watching it, rewind it for a second and then shut off the sound and watch the scene. It's a totally different moment. And that's like the best example of why sound design is so important. Without sound, that scene is completely different. It's such a brilliant, and to think that was like a last second add-on to that movie. I mean, I could keep talking about every scene of that movie. We can keep, because now they're all coming back to me. It's I can't like you. I mean, it's ridiculous how much that movie is like. To me, it's perfect.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, those two moments you mentioned, I mean, a lot of people cite that as two of their most scary and suspenseful moments, not just in Jaws, but sort of any movie. And the first one you talked about there with the estuary victim and the shark coming sort of just under the water. Spielberg very famously said, when the shark wasn't working, I had to make the water scary. And aside from keeping the shark out of sight, he's obviously hinting at the shark a lot, and he's using camera angles and coverage and water and things like that in just really, really clever, smart ways that keep you almost seeing the shark in your mind more than you actually see it with your eye. And that's infinitely more terrifying because you then fill in the blanks with your imagination and it just heightens the suspense. And then you throw in these amazing characters that are just, you really genuinely care for them. And you sort of throw that into the mix. Oh, it's just a cinematic experience unlike any other. And I remember showing it to a friend a few years ago, and she was much more of the modern sort of movie era. And she said basically two things at the end. One, it was really good. Like there wasn't a dull moment. It didn't drag. It was exactly what she expected it to be, but also very different. It was much more people orientated. And the second thing she said was, but there was no green screen. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And she thought it was made sort of early to mid 90s. And I'm like, no, this was made in 1975.
Wow.
This movie's even older than me. And she's like, I can't believe that. I was like, yeah. And then we started to dig into sort of some of the trivia and the facts and stuff. And I started showing a bit more of the Daily Jaws and some of the behind the scenes stuff. And she goes, they really physically made that film. I'm like, yeah, that's craft. And it's not to discourage from people who do work in the sort of CGI stuff, because a lot of people just think they push a button and things render, and that's absolutely not true. But there's a real admiration, I think, for the physical craft of filmmaking that we're kind of seeing a bit more of a resurgence on, obviously, since things like model making and props are now being used very well with CGI. We went through that period, I think, in the early sort of 2000s when everything was CGI to death. But I think now filmmakers understand that, that can actually be quite detracting from the story. And if Jaws taught us anything, story and character is even more important than the spectacle and the blood and the guts and the gore of the shark and everything else.
No, you're right. And it's also, yeah, it can never be done again. It was all the circumstances. It's just like you mentioned, like the characters. It's like, because the shark wasn't working, everyone knows this. I don't want to talk about something everyone knows a million times. Like they had all this time there to just keep shooting character, and they had just all the townspeople there, and it's just everything is lived in, everything feels authentic. And that's like where it all just kind of starts tying together. It's just this perfect mix of something today. Everyone would be casted, you know. Every other character in that movie would be some type of character actor or something, but all those people were real people. And how good of a director Spielberg was to just get, the fact that they had to wait for the shark to keep working, so they had all this time just to keep shooting character and keep shooting around, in a way. It wasn't luxury for them because they were under a lot of pressure, but in the long run, it just all worked out. This is a weird one to compare it to, and I'm so sorry, but like that Evil Dead remake, a lot of people thought it was going to be awful. But the reason why I liked it, and I think why it turned good, was because Sam Raimi had the power to give that director like more than enough time to shoot that movie at the cabin and really make gave him more time in the world to get all the effects to work, because he had the power to do that. And that's why that movie turned out good, was because they weren't rushed. They didn't have all this, and that was like Jaws. Because the shark was broken, they had all this time to just make
Mm.
it more lived in and make it more authentic. And that's why that we'll never get that type of acting, that type of feeling from a like, if they ever did remake it, it will never ever feel like that. It's just impossible.
Yeah, and I think I mean I've done a few interviews on Jaws, and the thing that I keep coming back to when I think about the making of the movie is a lot of the right things went wrong. So I
Mhm.
think, and it just, as you say, it just gave people that time to invest in character and things like that. But anyway, so Stephen, we could obviously talk about Jaws all day, but we're here obviously to talk about this new movie sort of slash documentary that you're making about sharksploitation and the sort of the shark movie genre. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, first off, I have a really cool crew. I have Josh Miller, the writer of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I do a podcast with him, Best Movies Never Made. He's been my co-host, and he's been on this journey with me and since day one, which has been awesome. He's producing along with Carrie Dignan Roy. I'm so sorry, Carrie, if I mispronounced your middle name. She's an awesome producer that produced 7852, the Alfred Hitchcock shower scene documentary, and Memory, the Alien doc. She's producing along with Josh. And I also have Jim Coons, who shot the Island of Dr. Moreau documentary about Richard Stanley.
Mhm.
And this other awesome documentary on Al Adamson. And so he's the DP. So we got this little tight crew, and I'm excited to be working on this. Yeah, so we're pretty much diving into the history of sharks in cinema from from the early 30s until now. So I mean, yeah, it's a pretty big spectrum, and it's just kind of like how Hollywood looked at them from like the 30s, and then we get to how it changed with Jaws, and then how Jaws just kind of changed the genre. Because if you kind of look at the movies pre-Jaws, it was like, sometimes there was sharks in the title, She Gods a Shark Reef and the Shark Hunters and stuff like that. But it's not like the movie was about the shark. Sharks happened to be in the movie. But then after Jaws, it was like the sharks are the movie, and so it kind of changed everything. So it's the journey, the history of sharks in cinema, So yeah, there's going to be a little Jaws in it, but there's been so much said about Jaws, so I'm kind of, leave that. I will touch on it. Of course, I have to, because like you said, it's the Godfather, but it's also about everything that comes after it as well,
Mm.
because I guess because of Jaws, I became so obsessed with shark movies. And because, I guess it's like chasing the dragon. It's like we love Jaws so much that it's like anything with a shark I needed to see,
Mm.
Am I going to get that same visceral reaction from another movie with a shark? And and so even before internet, it was chasing down movies I saw when I was a kid, like Up from the Depths. I saw one night, like I taped it on ABC television, and like I'm a huge fan of Piranha, and I'm a huge, even though that's not sharks, but still aquatic. There was all these movies, that I just, anything with a shark, like I said, I was obsessed with. And especially growing up after Jaws, I got to see Jaws 2 in the theaters. And that wait to see Jaws the Revenge in the theaters was unreal. And then, but as a kid, I did like it when I saw it in the theaters, but I know it's, yeah. But yeah, but anyway, I'm obsessed with shark movies, and I'm happy to do this project, and I'm humbled to do this project, and I'm gonna, just trying to just see how much I can fit into this documentary, because it's such a crazy amount of shark movies, and I know there's people like myself. I mean, how about you? I love the Daily Jaws, and I love how you guys touch on every shark movie as well. I mean, are you guys feel the same way about the genre?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but there's sort of a couple of people that work with me. But for me, particularly in the last, say, 10, 15 years, there seems to have been an explosion or sort of a resurgence of the shark movie. I think people are sort of taking it in two different directions. You've got this sort of silly, crazy movies where you've got six-headed shark monster beast versus octopus mega thing or whatever, which is great fun, you know, but you never really expect a huge amount from those. But you've also got people who are trying to get back to that whole thriller suspense kind of angle, you know, and one of my favorite shark movies is The Shallows. I think they did that really, really well. Not just the shark, but the suspense and the story and the setting, and it didn't get too unrealistic. And I like that, but I also like to see the, you know, just writers and filmmakers with their imagination sort of running riot. But I guess it begs the question though, because obviously one of the things you said just in your answer there was that you're going to touch on Jaws, but obviously it's not maybe a massive focus because so much has already been said about Jaws. But is Jaws a sharksploitation movie? And further, if a shark is in a movie, does it automatically become a sharksploitation movie, or is there some sort of gray area in between where not all shark movies are sharksploitation?
Yeah, that's something we are diving in with, the bad pun, but you know what I mean? That's something that we are diving in with this movie and touching on, because like, yeah, it's almost like for years I just liked shark movies, and then it was like the same thing when I was growing up. I loved the same term, black exploitation. All of a sudden, you know, I just growing up, I only had so many channels, but whenever I caught like a movie like Car Wash or Shaft, or, you know, I'd watch it because, you know, usually when a movie had like a full black cast, I liked the movie a lot. And then later on, I went to go see Dolomite in the theaters, and Rudy Ray Moore was there, and he's like, "Why are they calling these black exploitation? We were just making these movies, and they're just movies to us." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Huh, that's interesting." So it's like almost a term I want to go back to it. So now with, but I guess with sharks, it is a little bit different because it's the way. I mean, I mean, yeah, it's something I'm looking at in this movie, but it's also like I guess it is kind of exploitation as well, because it's the way they are kind of demonizing them, like, you know, like because of these movies, now we think like the moment we jump in the water, is there going to be something there to attack us, you know? And so it's the way they're treating the sharks, you know, in these movies. And
Mm.
what's been nice to see with all my interviews that I've been doing is I'm always asking the questions to these people too. It's like, I mean, how do you feel about sharks? And I've been happy to get some answers. Like, I don't want to give away too much of what we're getting into, or I want to, you know, I want to next. I mean, I'd love to talk to you again when I'm getting closer, because I'd
Mm.
love to delve a little bit more into this. But it is something we are delving into in this movie as well. Besides the shark movies themselves, is looking at, you know, that title, where, like, why are these called, what is sharksploitation? I guess, you know, with exploitation, all these movies are coming out, there's a shark in it, but I guess they are in some way, they were exploiting the shark. But it
Mm.
seems like now people are now looking at it more like, you know, I'm happy now with um with the events of like the last 20 years, that now we're starting to see sharks differently that we saw before, you know, the 80s, where we were scared of these things and it was shark tournaments. And now it's more like, you know, they bite you and they let you go. That's what it is. You know, they're not out there to harm you, but the movies, they do want to present them as these monsters.
Mm.
But now I think that's why, I guess, like with movies like, I guess the hybrid shark movies, it makes more sense that they are monsters, because they're not pure sharks in a way, like a sharktopus or six-headed shark, like you said, or
Mm.
zombie shark. There is a reason why they're attacking people. And but then again, you know, it is also entertainment, and it's also, we all, you know, it's like you have to go in there and you have to separate yourself from reality, you know. But I'm happy also that there's more of a vibe now, that people also understand that they don't want to kill you.
Yeah, we
I'm not
actually
sure
did
if I
a
answered your question there. I'm sorry, man, if
no,
I
no,
was
no, 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 no,
rambling, but
no, no, no.
it's
It was good because it reminded me of a recent interview that we did with Dr. Brianna Lebusque, who's she's this Australian PhD whiz, and she's looking at psychology and conservation, and specifically what we call the Jaws effect, which is why are we always just so frightened of sharks when, you know, we know the chances of getting attacked by a shark are probably like 11 million to 1. And when we look at actually the way that, you know, the encounters that people do have with sharks, there's a very small percentage of them that are actually fatal. Sharks can't touch you in the normal way. You know, they don't have hands like we do. They have to explore with their mouths. And sadly, those things can be fatal. But ultimately, you know, I think two things. I think one is a cinema audience. You know, we're smart enough to know that we're about to go and see a movie about a fictionalized shark. But I think it's when you get a movie like Jaws that is just so well crafted, you know, it's so well made, it's so well made, it does have a very deep rooted effect, and it sort of got into that primal fear of, you know, the unknown and man versus nature, and just not being top of the food chain and being out of our element. All of those things combined, you know, it really touched something very deep and primal. And also it was just marketed brilliantly. You know, when you think back to that original campaign, I mean, I wasn't alive when the marketing came out, but I've had a look at it, a really close look at it, and it's one of the best marketed products, let alone movies, ever made, you know. And you just think all of those things combine into this perfect storm. And the fact that even though sharks had been sort of demonized long before Jaws, you know, there's a lot of sort of propaganda against sharks, sort of particularly around sort of World War II. Actually, Jaws tapped into something not just primal, but also just the unknown, in terms of sharks weren't really on the public consciousness in that way. And it was the first movie to break like $100 million. It did it in like 38 days because of the hype and the excitement. So you got marketing, psychological fear and factor, something new that the audiences hadn't necessarily seen before, and this amazingly gifted storyteller. You put all of that together, and no wonder Jaws is still echoing today, not just in terms of the individuals that are seeing it, but, you know, through different types of movies, whether that's the shark genre or monster movies in general. You know, if most movies somewhere have that Indianapolis speech in there, they normally have that little monologue, one of the characters explaining themselves and their background and their motivations and things like that. So Jaws echoes, and I think it's just a combination of a lot of different things, and it's really exciting to kind of see where Jaws fits in amongst this landscape. Even though it was the godfather of the shark movie, it's also bred these really unusual different ways, and it's also opened the door for a lot of other filmmakers as well. You know, obviously George Lucas and Star Wars probably wouldn't have happened the way that it did unless it was for Jaws, because, you know, a studio backed a whiz kid with a vision. The next studio did the same thing and got even better results, you know, arguably from sort of a commercial point of view in this ongoing franchise. So I think it's a really, really interesting debate. And I think hopefully we're going to be doing a bit more work with Brianna, and we're going to be sort of hopefully taking her research a little bit deeper to really understand not just what is the Jaws effect, but how do we overcome it? Because you're right, it's an easy go-to for a lot of media news, particularly here in the UK. We get so many newspapers that are still demonizing sharks and using phrases like killer shark terrorizes beach, when in actual fact it's a perfectly harmless species just going for a cruise, just having a swim by it. You know, it's not out to hurt anybody or anything like that. So I think there's a lot of things there that that need to be sort of understood in order for them to be overcome. And I guess on that, you know, my next question is, in terms of shark movies in general, do you still think that there's a place for them in cinema, or do we need to preface all of these movies with a disclaimer or something like that to go, the movie you're about to see isn't truly reflective of shark behavior, it's a work of fiction? I mean, where do you kind of stand on that as a filmmaker and also a movie lover?
I think we're starting to finally see that it's like, you know, I'm a huge horror movie fan, and I've been a horror movie fan since I was a kid. And, you know, I've watched, you know, I grew up during, I was very lucky to grow up, I guess, during the 80s, when I was able to see all these amazing horror movies coming out: A Nightmare on Elm Street, the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens, and, you know, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels, which I like. And, but I never was going to go out and just start killing people or anything. I knew it was entertainment. I was able just to separate, you know, it's just, you know, I knew the neon maniacs weren't going to come and get me. I knew like all this crazy horror stuff I was watching, you know, it's just, I was able to separate it. And I think people are able to do that today. And I think today with, you know, I think where we are now, we know way more than we did in the 70s and the 80s. So I think we can enjoy these now for what they are and kind of separate ourselves from that now. I think, because like I said, I didn't really have Shark Week growing up. I don't know if do you guys have, we have Discovery Channel here in Shark Week. And
yeah, we featured on Shark Week this year in a very small segment.
oh, you did?
That's on Discovery. Yeah, we did an interview with Josh Gates just about our Jaws remake. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's
Oh, awesome.
It was a remake of Jaws that we asked our community to help us create, and it's it's hilarious. It's so good. And this guy Josh Gates picked up on it, and we did a very quick segment for him this year. But yeah, we have seen sort of Shark Week, and again, you know, the debate around things like Shark Week continues because, you know, Shark Week seems to, at the moment, seem to be more in the entertainment rather than education sort of sphere at the moment. They're trying to, I think they're just trying to keep things fresh and exciting and interesting, which is great. But people fundamentally go there to learn about sharks. So to your point, it's, you know, you've got this amazing springboard like Jaws. It gets people fascinated or fearful of
Hmm.
sharks. But either way, they kind of both want to find out more about these creatures, you know, and Shark Week before, obviously it's been going for sort of 30, 33 years now, I think it is. It's like, you know what? It used to be really educational. It still is to a point, but I think it's leaning a little bit too much on occasion in the entertainment. And I think it's a shame because it's an amazing opportunity to celebrate these amazing creatures.
No, I agree. I'm happy we have, like, you know, Jeff Kerr's stuff with the air jaws and all that. But like this year's Shark Week, I don't want to talk bad about Shark Week because I watch it every year, but this year I just kept seeing it was more about shark attacks, and I kept turning the channels. Like, I want to, you know, I want to watch, you know, I feel bad for the people who were attacked by, I want to say it, encountered by sharks. You know, I feel, you know, and I'd love to interview maybe one or two for the doc, but I just, if you're doing a show Shark Week, I just feel bad that I have to see so many specials on it because you're kind of putting it out there a little bit too. It's okay to have one or two, but this year it was almost like every night I kept seeing a new, you know, shark attack special. And I was like, I
Mm,
kind of want to just, you know, like Blue Water White Death, where it's just like you're seeing sharks on film, like you're just seeing them, you know, it's like I wish I could, and I wish I could watch just sharks and not sharks be pulled out of the water and tagged and stuff like that. I don't, you know, there's only so much of that I could watch before I'm just like I have to turn the channel. I don't know if
mm,
that makes sense, but I guess I mean, thing is I'm kind of sensitive. Ever since I got a dog, I've become so sensitive to animals, you know, and I can't watch, like, watching sharks being tagged is very difficult for me to watch in a way,
mm,
because one time I was watching a show and they clamped something on a fin with bolts, and I was like, you know, it's like if a giant picked me up and freaking put something through my Achilles and just let me off and to run around the streets so you can see where I'm going. I mean, I
mm.
understand we have to do that, but at the same time too, it's just like some of the stuff I'm watching on those shows, they kind of affect me. And so I'm having a hard time watching them, to be honest.
Mm.
But I
And
would like, I'm sorry, go.
no, I was just going to say it's a great point that you make, and I think, you know, there's a lot of people out there who, and again, because we're starting to learn more about sharks, and we're starting to see the way that we interact with them, not just as a species in terms of just going for the swimming for the beach, but also our scientists. I think there's, you know, a really healthy debate going on about how should we interact with sharks. You know, do we come out of the cage? Do we swim alongside them? Do we touch them? Do we tag them? All of that stuff, because there's different pros and cons for each. You know, we want to learn more about these animals so we can educate people further and sort of demystify this misapprehension that people have about sharks, which obviously you see in the Sharksploitation movies, and people will always argue it goes back to Jaws. But you know, if you do your homework, you can see that this fearful narrative of this monster has been going on long before the movie Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, in your film, I think you'd speak to Wendy Benchley, who's the wife of Peter Benchley. And obviously, after the movie came out, they both dedicated themselves to shark conservation. You know, educating people and removing that fearful factor. Did you get to talk to her about sort of her views on those things, and also in terms of sort of like the proliferation of shark movies? I mean, where was she on that sort of topic?
Oh yeah, we're actually, yeah, I'm kind of saving some of that for the movie. Don't want to get too much into that. Um, but I'll tell you off air.
Okay, cool.
But don't want to give away too much yet. But yeah, it was a humbling experience to talk to her. She was amazing, and she's
Mm,
definitely like, we, you know, a core, you know, very important. So is Peter Benchley, you know, his life and what he did. So yeah, so we got lots of great stuff for, on, you know, the whole spectrum of that, of course. But
Nice.
I will say, she does, one thing she did say is she took it as a compliment, you know, all the movies that came after, because it was based on, what, movies wise, so.
Mm. And again, it does always go back to Peter Benchley's source novel, even though the movie was
Mhm.
sort of so impactful. I think, yeah, we always sort of not necessarily overlook, but I think sometimes we underestimate, the amount of importance that Benchley's original novel had, and obviously, his journey subsequently after that, to try and, I wouldn't say necessarily correct the perception that maybe his book and movie had created, but just to educate people, just to make sure that they understood the reality, and like you say, separate fact from fiction from an audience and students and whoever else sort of wants to learn.
Oh,
Beyond Wendy, who else did you interview for the movie?
oh, yeah, we got some great people so far. Like we got Joe Dante, we got Roger Corman, we got Joe Alves, who made the Shark for Jaws. Don't need to tell you who Joe Alves
Oh,
is.
Joe's a legend. Yeah, he's amazing.
Oh, he's incredible. Mario Van Peebles, who is awesome. We got David Worth, who made the one of my favorites, Shark Attack 3, and got Misty Talley, who did
Oh, she did Santa
Mississi-
Jaws, didn't she?
yeah, she's awesome. She's like one of my favorite people. She's fantastic.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
interviewed her last year for Christmas. Yeah,
oh,
she's awesome.
cool, dude.
Such an amazing call.
She's such a nothing but awesome things to say about her. She's so
Yeah.
funny too. I hope she's able to make more, because I love I love the humor in her movies. Yeah, and like I was what, because out here for a second it was kind of cool. We had, you know, every time a Sharknado movie would come out, we'd have a week of programming on the Sci-Fi Channel where every night they'd release a new shark movie, and it was just
Mm.
this great for me, because I watch them all. I mean, I know how to growing, like I told you, I grew up as a kid watching horror movies because I watched so many horror movies as a kid, especially all the ones I mentioned from the 80s and getting into the 90s with Dr. Giggles and all that stuff. It's just like I just know how to separate my brain to just enjoy,
Mm.
so with these shark movies that come out, like I just know how to shut off my brain and just to enjoy what it is, because like there would be like a week of programming during before Sharknado would come out. We get like Planet of the Sharks, and and I DVR them, and I just kind of watch them gradually throughout the next like month or two. Whenever I had the second, I'm gonna watch this one. And
Mm.
when I came across one of Misty's, I think it was Mississippi River Sharks, that's when I immediately reached out to her to be in this. And I was like, dude, your movie's like a lot of fun. I had a good time. I just, and so anyway, but yeah, she's great. And I'm happy now, like last Christmas, like everyone just started watching Santa Jaws, and, it was out already for a little bit. And I
Yeah.
guess when it came out, there was a little talk about, but now last Christmas, all of a sudden it felt like it was everywhere. I was so happy for it. I was like, this is great, because it's such a, like every time I think about that movie, I think about the fin with the Santa Claus hat on it, and it just cracks me up. I've watched
Brilliant.
it the last two Christmases, actually. It's
Yeah.
so funny, that movie. It knows where the humor is too. And that's what I love about her as well. But yeah, we
Yeah.
got a lot of cool people so far, and we also got the director of Open Water, and yeah, I'll just stop there. I want to keep, but we have a lot of great people, and I'm, like I said, just really happy to have their voices in this and to get some great behind the scenes stories, and
Mm.
what inspired them, and what, like I said, there's so many movies to cover, so
Well,
doing our best.
speaking of voices, did Mario Van Peebles do his Jamaican accent during the interview?
I did not ask,
Oh,
and
that would have been great, wouldn't it?
oh my god, and what killed me too was I wish I would have, like, we interviewed him, he was awesome, and then like 2 days later, man, I was watching like 21 Jump Street on Amazon Prime, and it was so funny. It was right before he did Jaws the Revenge. He had the same character and the same hair and the same Jamaican accent for a second in 21 Jump Street. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could have asked him if he practiced the character there, or did he
Oh
bring the
man.
character over, because it was during the same time.
God, that's a
Oh man.
conspiracy theory, isn't it? 21 Jump
Yeah.
Street, Jaws the Revenge. My
Yeah,
God.
they
That's
I think
what
I'm
that's your next documentary. You've got to investigate that,
yeah.
right?
Oh man. Let's see if I could pull 2 hours out of that, drive everyone crazy.
Do you
No, but
sorry, I was going to say, do you have a favorite Sharksploitation movie? Because I mean, as you say, there's still nearly sort of 200 that we could talk about, but do you have one that really sort of that's my favorite? That's the one I love.
Oh man, there's so many, but I do like I love that. I mean, Severin just put it out. It was called Cruel Jaws. I mean, I mean, one of my favorites is Great White,
Mm.
but because Great White was the first movie I read about it in this magazine called Deep Red, and it was like in the like early 90s, no internet yet. And I was like, I've never heard of this movie. How do I find it? And I couldn't find it anywhere. It was like it didn't exist here because Universal banned it because when Jaws came out, it was too similar. So it
Yeah.
took me for years to find Great White, which is also called like The Last Shark um, in some places. And that just became like for years this movie to hunt down and find. And,
Mm.
you know, and I love it because how similar it is to Jaws. And I love just, you know, they tried so hard and they showed the shark throughout it, you know, and they're not scared of
Yeah.
showing it, even though it doesn't look good. But then I discovered, I found like, I ordered it from Thailand in like the later 90s, a movie called Jaws 5, Cruel Jaws. Now it's just going under the title Cruel Jaws, where they take all the shark, all the shark stuff from Great White, they recasted it, and then they use like cues from the Star Wars theme. They use shots from Jaws 1 and 2. Like there's a sequence where if you go through it and pause it, you'll see shots from Jaws 2, you'll see shots from the Kinta, you'll see shots from, it is just insanity, that movie. And I love it to death, man. I love Cruel Jaws. I mean, you might be able to, like I said, Severin recently released it. Oops, sorry. Severin recently released it. But yeah, it's been hard to find for a while. And now all of a sudden in the last, I guess 6 months since they released it, I've been seeing it all over online. And it's been really cool. You know, it's like, wow, people are finally kind of discovering this insane movie, like
There's
insane.
I
Oh, and
was
they
going to
use
say,
dialogue from Peter Benchley's book too.
oh
You
right.
know, yeah, they use actual like dialogue from his book in the movie.
I'm going to have to track this down because there's I don't know if you've seen it, and I think it used to be online. I can't remember if it was YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. But there's actually Jaws, the Sharksploitation cut. Have you seen that?
I came across it once because they gave it like all that weird film grain and all that stuff.
That's
But
right. Yeah. So it
I didn't
looks like, distressed 70s classic, like old reel. And yeah, that's pretty cool because they insert a lot more shark in there. And it's a mixture of sort of modern day or relatively modern day shark footage. And they've also sort of got computer generated shark stuff as well happening. So you see basically a lot more sharks. So it's as if Jaws had been made, but when the shark was working. Do you know what I mean? It's odd. It's as if Bruce had behaved himself and done exactly what Spielberg had wanted him to do every single day. That's sort of like
Oh,
what the
interesting.
Sharksploitation got. Yeah, I'll see if I can find you a link. If I can find the link, I'll embed it in the description of this interview when it's up on YouTube, so everybody can enjoy it. Because it's an interesting perspective because it doesn't just look distressed. It's also got a brand new title sequence. It's very 70s, very sort of late 60s
Okay.
hippie kind of stuff. I'll see
I'll
if I
have to
can find that for you. I think it was on YouTube before, but I'll try and
yeah,
dig it out from somewhere.
I stumbled upon it somewhere at one point. Did you see? I mean, I'm not gonna. I shouldn't even ask. You probably did see it, but someone did a side by side where they recreated that really cool sequence in Jaws: The Revenge. Like my favorite sequence is with Lance Guest when he's being chased by Bruce through the ship and everything, and someone
Yes, did the
recreated
VFX, didn't they?
yeah. And I gotta say, man, it hurt the movie for me because now when I see that shot with the shark, like there's a shot with Marvin Peebles now, and then they turn and the shark is next to it. I
Mhm.
never realized how silly he looked during that because I watched this, it like completely, it's like, oh man. I mean, I know,
This
I mean, I'm sorry, go.
No, no, I was just going to say because even though like Jaws itself, I would probably argue isn't a shark exploitation movie because it's not necessarily about the shark; it's more about the characters. Whereas, in
Mhm.
my mind, a shark exploitation movie is always about the shark. More shark on screen and just doing more and more crazy and ridiculous things. Jaws: The Revenge is sort of definitely in that shark exploitation kind of, I would say it's crossed the line into Sharksploitation. And one of the great things though about Jaws: The Revenge, because I've been watching it recently for a little project we've got going on at the moment. It actually gave us some of the best behind the scenes photographs of any of the Jaws movies, because obviously they filmed it in the Bahamas during this beautiful crystal clear blue water, and you can see the rigs, the ladders, the tracks, you can see the pumps, you can see the pipes, you can see everything. So I think even though Jaws: The Revenge is just ridiculous, like you, if you just leave your, like, you know, like you say, if you just leave your common sense and the
Yeah.
part of your, and a part of your brain outside, and you sit in front of your screen and you watch it, and you just watch it for what it is. There are some generally good moments in that movie. The shark does look a little silly from time to time, but I think that is part of its charm. And I read somewhere, although I'm still trying to get this confirmed, that apparently other local sharks attacked the model shark when it was in the water. So
Oh,
that's
that's
why
so
apparently in
crazy.
certain parts it looks a little bit tatty. And there's a really famous shot of the shark swimming away, and you see bubbles coming out of the dorsal fin, and it's been stitched. And apparently that's because other fish had a go at it.
Oh wow, what
So,
a trip.
yeah, a lovely little bit of trivia there for you. But anyway, which brings me beautifully to my next question, because this is one of the big debates when it comes to shark movies, whether it's Sharksploitation, Jaws, sequels, or whatever. Sharks themselves, CGI or practical? Where are you in that debate?
It's that's an interesting one. Because when I started doing this doc, I had people telling me I shouldn't do any of the Sci-Fi Channel ones, and I was like, I have to, because like the Sci-Fi Channel, you know, I grew up with watching King Kong and Godzilla on Channel 9 as I was a kid, and now I think kids today grow up with the Sci-Fi Channel and these two-headed shark attacks, and you know, Ghost Shark, which I love, and that's another one of my favorites is Ghost Shark. You know, and like all these films, I think that's what kids, I think that's what kind of took over like Jaws and King Kong, you know, are these movies. So kids are, you know, used to these CGI ones. I mean, I'll say this. Yeah, I do like practical sharks better, but the problem is, I mean, like, you know, Deep Blue Sea, when you can see the practical sharks are awesome, but then, you know, a lot of the movie is CG. It's tough. It's tough. Like, you know, besides Jaws, Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws the Revenge, you know, we had somewhat of a Up from the Depths is not really a shark. It's like more of a sea creature, you know. Trying to think, you know, I love the practical sharks of Jaws, but then when you get to like, what was it, Deep Blood 1990, you know, I'm expecting to see a practical shark, but it was all stock, it was only stock footage. It's like we only, I love practical sharks, but we rarely ever got practical sharks eating people. I think Jaws and Revenge shows like the ultimate, Jaws and Jaws of Revenge, Quint's death and the banana boat scene. Those two scenes are like the ultimate practical eating someone, because besides, I guess Jaws 3, when
I was
he's
going to
eating,
say Philip Fitzroyce, because you've got that
yeah,
view from
how can
inside.
we forget? How can we
That
forget the most?
that freaked me out when I saw that as a kid. But then you
Yeah.
look at it back, and you know, when you're a bit older and you watch it and you think that's really innovative and ambitious from a movie point of view.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that again in a movie since, whether that's a shark movie or not. And I just thought that's really cool, because like you, I like to see actors physically interacting with something. And when you look at something, say like The Shallows, which is I think predominantly CGI, but
hmm
you can see the actors interacting with something practical. So they had a very basic sort of shark model. It wasn't detailed at all, but it just gave the actors and the crew and everybody just something physical to work with. And it does produce a different energy, because a lot of actors who do work on green screen, they say they have to use their imagination a lot, which is great. That's their job, but it's better if they've got something they can physically react to and see and touch and grapple with and all that. And I just think, like to your point, if you know, Jaws was made back in the day when we know CGI was available, and you look at something like Quint's death, it wouldn't have been as impactful as a CGI shark with a real actor. I think real physical prop, engaging with a real sort of physical world and environment. I think for me can't be beaten. And then, like to your point, you add, you know, sound design and music and everything else to it, and it's just like what an experience. But it's an interesting one, because CGI has got so much better, and models are now being used to enhance the CGI capabilities and things like that. But one of the questions we asked during a video that we did recently, which is about a Jaws remake, was if they could remake Jaws with a CGI Bruce shark. So the shark would look exactly the same, but it's just CGI. So it can do maybe a little bit more. Would you want to see it? And people were really curious about that idea because it's kind of like a lovely middle ground between the two. But then, you CGI something, you can do more with it. Therefore, do you put more shark in, and then you actually rob Jaws of what makes it so special? It's a fascinating question, and I love just having these conversations with filmmakers, fans, and whoever. So coming back to this amazing documentary, I mean, I can't wait to see this because this is something we've been sort of toying with doing a sort of a mini video on Sharksploitation, but you've got a whole documentary with a whole host of guests. When do you think the documentary will be coming out? Have you got a release date? And how can people support and follow your progress?
Oh, thank you. I can't really give a release date yet. We are still working away on it. It's like just trying to get some more people to fill it in and everything. I hopefully, like I said, I hope I can come on again soon when we're a little bit closer and I can let you all know when we're. I mean, we are working on it hard. Like, we have a lot more people we shot that I don't want to bring up yet. But you can please follow us on Twitter. It's at Shark Movie Doc, and please follow us on Instagram. I mean, it will really help us out because right now, any help we can get right now that we know that people do want to see this and help support us would be so greatly appreciated. On Twitter, we are, not Twitter, Instagram, we are Sharksploitation documentary.
Okay.
On Instagram, but it would really help us out a lot if people could follow us, and then you'll see some news for sure on the upcoming weeks. We got a lot of great people coming up to interview still. It was just that the pandemic slowed us down, and now that people are vaccinated and they're more comfortable being interviewed again, we're catching up, and it's great, and we're excited, and we keep getting introduced to other people. So it's like we're trying to do trying to make it right, so it's like we got such a crazy.
I was going to say it's a lesson we've learned. Just get it right. Take your time.
Yes.
People will want to watch this, particularly Jaws fans, shark movie fans, or whoever. So we really do wish you the best of luck. And what we'll do is we'll put all of your links and things like that in the description, so people can just, after watching the interview, just follow you straight away and offer their support, because we're going to be keeping a close eye on your journey. And as you say, we'd love to invite you back once things are ready and you can tell us a little bit more. There's so much more I want to talk to you about, but I appreciate that you've got to keep it under wraps, but it's all good.
Yeah, I would love to, trust me, man, I could talk out. I mean, there's so many movies too. I'd love to talk about. And that's been the hard thing too. It's just like, oh man, I drive. You understand? I have my entire wall in front of me is filled with index cards of certain movies and stuff. I have this whole thing mapped out, and but I'm excited about it. And like I said, I'm humbled to have the opportunity to make this, and it's been like a passion project, and the people behind it are good. We're all excited and we're all passionate about it. And like I said, we just want to do this. We want to make fans happy, and we want to give them something really good, and especially shark movie fans, it's like we can't get enough of these films if you're like me, and so hopefully this is the love letter to it, and to you guys, you guys over there, Daily Jaws, man, you guys are the greatest.
Oh, seriously. Well, thank you. That's very kind. Well, we love what we do, and it's a great opportunity to connect to people like yourself, and also get your work that you're doing out to just as many Jaws fans and shark movie fans as possible. Stephen Scarlata, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us. We're going to look forward to speaking to you again. We're looking forward to some more updates on this movie. Guys, I've been Ross for the Daily Jaws. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do follow Stephen at the Instagram and Twitter accounts. The links will be in the bio. Stephen, it's normally traditional for me to leave the last word with the guest. Would you like to say a quick goodbye?
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys for all your support so far with the project. I really appreciate it. Everyone that's followed us and mentioned nice comments. It's really, really thankful for any support. Thank you so much. Really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good man. Good man. Well, farewell and adieu, guys. I'll drink to your legs. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to know more about Jaws, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and visit our website, thedailyjaws.com. Until next time, we drink to your legs. Farewell and adieu.